So post-fight review of the Johnriel Casimero versus Charlie Edwards fight for Casimero's IBF World Flyweight Championship, the same title that, of course, he managed to upset and defeat Amna Ronrong for back in May by a fourth round knockout. Here, he managed to TKO Charlie Edwards in the 10th round of a pretty brutal affair. It started off pretty even, actually. Edwards was doing some pretty good boxing, but Casimero was stalking him, loading up on just the massive, massive shots, just nasty left hooks, nasty right hands over the top. Really just trying to load up, trying to really put a beating on Edwards. Edwards was doing pretty good boxing, pretty good moving. Was making all the right moves, it seemed, but it just wasn't enough in the end. I thought that they were kind of trading rounds, probably about through the first maybe 5-6. Beyond that, once it got into the middle and the mid to late rounds, it became all Casimero. Just the right hand was landing cleanly, the left hook was landing cleanly. Breaking him down to the body, hitting him on the arms. It's like he's one of those guys where it's like he'll hit you on the arms, he'll hit you on the forearms, the shoulders. The back a little bit, maybe like your neck and your collarbones and everything. It's like everything just hurts because he's throwing everything with high power, high speed, a lot of snap, a lot of pop. He's really looking to put a hurting on you. With Edwards, he was looking to box and move, stick and move, try to spoil Casimero a bit, but he wasn't quite doing everything as well as you would really like to see him. He probably should have done a little bit more spoiling, maybe a little bit more clinch, hit and grab. Somewhat dirty cat tactics, but things that a lot of fighters are able to get away with. But it just wasn't meant to be for him. Casimero showed why he's a road warrior, showed why he's definitely a world champion, definitely a big threat to a lot of the top guys in or around flyweight. Incidentally, both of them made weight pretty cleanly. Both weighed 111 officially, and then for the IBF morning of weigh-in, Casimero weighed in at 122 and Charlie Edwards weighed in at 120. So around the same size, give or take maybe a pound or two, depending on if either of them decided to eat beyond that particular weight. Who knows? Some guys feel it makes them stronger. Some guys feel it makes them a little more sluggish. But in any case, I thought both of them looked really healthy and athletic in there. Casimero, clearly the stronger guy. Didn't show any signs of being weight drained as I thought that he might, considering the fact that it seemed that he was overweight for the I'm Not Wrong fight initially, and I'm not sure if he ever officially actually made the weight for that fight. In spite of the fact that he did make the IBF morning of weigh-in for that fight as well. But Casimero did the damn thing, man. He defended his IBF title, and it'd be interesting to see where he goes from here. There's a lot of big money opportunities now out there for him, for pretty much every top-level flyweight, every top-level super flyweight. Of course, they're all pretty much aiming at Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, should he happen to win tonight against Carlos Cuadras. And outside of him, of course, Kazuto Yoka, who's the single biggest moneymaker in Japan. Zhou Shiming is still out there. He's probably going to be fighting Wonsonchai Jim, possibly for the vacant WBO title on the Pacquiao versus Vargas undercard. Then there's also the likes of Francisco Chihuas Rodriguez, who's the top-level IBF contender now, considering the fact that Zhou Shiming may in fact be fighting for the WBO. If he winds up fighting for the WBO, then he'll lose his positioning, and Francisco Chihuas Rodriguez will be the new highest ranked IBF guy, which would be a really solid fight for Casimero, I think. He's another guy that has come up from a lower weight class. Obviously, Chihuas Rodriguez was a unified 105-pound champion. He had, which belts did he have? I'm trying to remember exactly which belts Rodriguez had. I think it was the WBO and the IBF, if I remember correctly, when he defeated Katsunari Takayama a few years back. Great fight, by the way. Great fight. For anybody that really wants to see just a fantastic fight, you want to kill some time, Francisco Chihuas Rodriguez versus Katsunari Takayama. Fantastic fight at 105 pounds. One of the best fights you could ever hope to watch. Other than him, there's also Nawapan Kaikana, a.k.a. Nawapan Porchokchai from Thailand, a guy that I've done some commentary on before with my boy EJ Boxing Live. He's actually the one of the higher rated contenders for the IBF and also the highest rated contender for the WBC. So we may actually wind up seeing him against Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez in the future should Gonzalez decide to campaign at 112 instead of 115, since the WBC apparently is allowing him to keep both belts should he happen to win the fight against Cuadras later. So it'll be interesting to see how that all turns out. But like I said, I mean, Casimero versus pretty much any of these guys, whether it's Estrada, Ioka, Gonzalez, Zhou Shiming, a lot of big money fights between all of those guys. Not to mention, if he were to move up to 115, he wouldn't necessarily lose his positioning as an IBF champion, considering the fact that he was the mandatory. So his mandatory is going to be required until next summer, essentially. So he has a lot of free time to potentially, possibly make a money fight at 115 versus the winner of Gonzalez Cuadras or Naoya Inoue. Either with whom he could make good money against, and should he happen to lose, he could just drop right back down to 112 as long as he's able to make the weight and choose to wind up taking some fights there for still good money, because he'd be the belt holder, he'd be the guy that other guys are gunning for, looking to make a name off of. Especially considering the fact that in terms of boxing ability, I would rate him lower than Estrada and Ioka. I don't think he's necessarily as dangerous as those guys, as well as, of course, Gonzalez as well. Those are ostensibly the 4 champions at the moment at Flyweight, those 4. But Casimero is always a dangerous fighter. He's going to be a guy that to be reckoned with. A fight I'd really like to see would be him versus McWilliams Arroyo. It's going to be interesting to see who Arroyo fights next, because I think he'll always be an interesting fighter to watch. A lot of power. Didn't necessarily show it as much against Gonzalez because he was forced to fight a very defensive fight in that fight. Gonzalez was just a buzzsaw, just technically outmatching him. But he showed some pretty good skills in that fight as well. Showed good survivability, fairly good defense. Had Gonzalez not necessarily as willing to take punches either. Gonzalez, of course, is technically a very good defensive fighter, but at the same time, he wasn't throwing quite as much as Arroyo. And I think part of that had to do with the fact that I think Arroyo was able to put a little bit of sting on some of those shots. So Gonzalez was a little bit more tentative with exactly how he was going to attack, and being a little bit more defensive with his offense in that manner. So he wasn't necessarily throwing streams of combination punches just to throw them. He was throwing his combination punches with a very specific purpose in mind, in order to avoid the potential return fire as much as he could, while still maintaining a solid offense. Just, a little bit of a trade-off, essentially. But Arroyo will do that to you, and I think Arroyo versus Casimero will be an incredible battle between 2 monster punchers, potentially the 2 biggest punchers at Flyweight. They're along with Brian Valoria, those are essentially the 3 just monster hitters. I guess you could put Kazuto Ioka up there, too, a little bit, but I think some of Ioka's power has kind of left him. Well, not necessarily left him, but it's not as effective at Flyweight as it was at light Flyweight and Strawweight, where he was just detonating guys, and especially with the body shots, just folding guys completely in half. I think he's definitely hit a bit of a ceiling with regard to that at Flyweight. But I'm getting a little bit off topic now. Johnriel Casimero pulled off a nice victory over Charlie Edwards, a little bit of an upstart. Definitely a solid road warrior. Casimero is pretty much the premier road warrior nowadays. Guy that fights consistently on the road, has defeated a number of current, future, or former world champions on the road, and he's continued to do it up until now. It'll be interesting to see if he manages to maybe get some of these big fights in his home country, though, in the Philippines. It'll be interesting to see. I hope for his sake he's able to. I hope he starts getting paid what he truly deserves, just like pretty much all these guys. A lot of these guys are severely underpaid. I think him especially, considering how much he's done in such a short time span. He's managed to fight a number of top-level fighters. He's only 26, has about 27, 28 fights now. Just going off the top, I'm not looking at his record right now. But fought a number of guys in their home countries or just away from his home country, and managed to come out on top way more often than not. And even his losses were fairly close affairs for the most part. So solid win from Casimero. Be interesting to see what he does next, how he does next. For Edwards, it's probably going to be going back towards the domestic level for him. Possibly fighting against the likes of Khalid Yafai or an Andrew Selby. Be interesting to see how those fights turn out. Maybe Jamie Conlon as well. All those guys are creating a little bit of a cool little domestic market for flyweights and super flyweights. So it'll be interesting to see if they mix up a matchup. But that's how I see it. Let me know what you guys think. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.